So this is Soma Basu, who is the deputy editor at the Hindu and who is currently based in Madurai. And so Ms. Soma Basu, could you tell us how can we use social media to share uplifting stories?
Well, social media has, in today's times, almost become a parallel system of journalism, but it both good and bad ways. So, from one, I'll start by giving one very personal experience of my, own writing. So, after I came to Madurai, which was about 12 years ago, and I rejoined the Hindu here, uh, there were a lot of stories which I did which were never written about. Like the first part was like covering personalities of Madurai, the local people who were known names, but people really didn't know much about them. And people wanted to also know the person, the persona, the person, the personality, they're the other side of their life story other than the profession that made them famous. So we ran a series and we really, kind of exposed lots and lots of individuals who were kind of local heroes and local celebrities. And as you know, Madurai is quite an industrial town, and there are a lot of groups which have come up, taken birth here, like the TVS group, the Tyagaraja group. So when I started interviewing those personalities, or when I started exploring the city, and I discovered a lot of and wrote about a lot of local Madurai food, which Madurai is famous for, the city is very famous for. So it remained largely restricted to my newspaper's reach. 5 or 6 years down the line, when the social media has become much more active and people have started posting, now you find the reach of these, the same news stories, how like people are, it's in one single say tweet put out or an insta post put out, lakhs and lakhs of people are coming to know about it, and it's evincing some kind of curiosity, evincing a lot of interest, generating a lot of interest. People are making inquiries, and the stories are going viral, which certainly did not happen with the when the news item is restricted only to the print media. So that part I feel is a very positive and a very good influence of social media to promote local things. Like very recently, if you noticed, if you happen to read, there was this news item about one very aged couple in Delhi who were running a dhaba, and their food was not selling and they were crying, and somebody took a video. And then next day there was this it's called the Baba Ka Dhaba in Malviya Nagar in Delhi. And after this little video clip was put out, which shows the old man has cooked this huge vessel full of some particular recipe, and then there is no taker for it, and is crying because it's COVID times and lockdown times, is losing money. So the moment this clip was put out, it went viral in no time. By next morning, so many people had queued up in front of his shop, so much help poured in. People offered money, people offered grocery, people offered him bigger space, people went out of their way to eat at his dhaba, and he kind of, and it just changed his life overnight. So that is where I feel that social media really plays a very important role. And because future is all about digital, or is going to be digital, as is the prediction. So if we're able to properly utilize the social media's influence, then of course it has a very good future. That's what I feel. I mean, it really gives an opportunity. Like earlier, like all the district reporters or district correspondents who were doing very good work, a lot of hard work, they were reporting from these small towns and cities, but their stories would hardly get into mainstream media. Mainstream media, which was largely monopolized, dominated by, say, the English newspapers. I mean, very rarely would they pick up a story unless it had a very national impact or a political impact. Then we would reach out to these local correspondents. But now, if you find, even, say, for instance, a small salon where a barber is running a small salon in, like I read about it in Tuticorin, it is happening, and he is also running a small library inside his salon. So this kind of news item has become viral just because of social media. Or if you notice, Prime Minister Modi is taking references of these stories, local stories, and putting them out in his Man Ki Baat. So you see, the impact of social media is really reaching out to be strong. But as long as we are able to put it out in a positive way. The local is getting more visible now. The local, the small towns, the smaller stories, which were earlier not really the case. But at the same time, a lot of negativity is also happening, trolling is also happening, but we would rather not look at that. Let's look at the positive impact of social media.
So it's great to hear that local businesses and small businesses are benefiting from social media. And so, can you tell us how your roadless traveler column came about?
It was called the road less traveled. That happened largely because, earlier I worked for 10 years in the Delhi office, Hindu's political bureau in Delhi. And when, due to personal reasons, I had to shift to the south. So I resigned from the job and came, and I really didn't know what to do because till then I had not really been to the south. I had not lived here, and I didn't know much, to be very honest. And of course, initially it was extremely boring for me. So I still remember that I think I reached Madurai on a particular Monday, and my then boss, who was the features editor, he called me exactly 4 days later, and he suddenly told me, "Look, we are going to start a travel column. So why don't you check out a place called Karaikudi this weekend?" And believe me, I really didn't know what Karaikudi was all about, other than it being Mr. P. Chidambaram's constituency. So I said, "What am I supposed to do there?" So he said, "No, you just roam around, just look at the mansions. It is very famous for these heritage bungalows. So you just look at it, look around, and just do an first impression piece." Because I didn't know the language, I didn't know the place, I didn't know history, geography, anything. I had not even unpacked my things basically. So I remember going with a lot of trepidation because I was not also a travel writer. I was a hardcore city reporter and a political reporter, and this was my first kind of exposure to a different kind of little bit light reading and writing. So I spent the whole day walking and meeting people, though language was a major drawback for me because I didn't speak Tamil. But since it was a piece meant to be just based on what I see, what I do there, how I spend my time, what food I eat, whom I meet. So basically a very informal kind of a travel column. So I enjoyed doing it. And when I came back, I also realized that this was perhaps a way to know the place better. There can't be better learning, than going out in the field and seeing and observing things rather than just reading about a place in a book. So once that first piece for the column happened, then it became a continuing process, and week after week, like I tried to discover new places because it was called road less traveled, and slowly, like we were not really going to touristy places. So the column ran for 5 years, and of which I think I contributed continuously the 5 years, and did more than I think 100 places. And the column, and which was kind of super successful, liked by everybody, to the extent that my name also changed to RLT Soma. That's how I was referred to those days. And it gave me a lot of visibility. And a lot of people started writing back to me with their suggestions, like somebody was going on some say trip, and on the way they saw something, and immediately I would get a letter or an email those days saying that, "Why don't you check this place out? We passed by it, and it could be of interest to you." So it was like that kind of a feedback which kind of kept me motivated and kept me going, and I kept on discovering new places and really enjoyed that phase of my career, mainly because I went into deep interiors. I got to learn about the state. I got to see so many places, and there could not have been a better history or a geography lesson than writing the column.
So I think this is really great, a motivational story of yourself. And so, what guidance do you have for students who are interested in journalism or if they want to take up writing as a hobby?
Uh, See, I when I began my career, I remember long ago, I had briefly met Mr. Kushwant Singh, and he asked me. The first question was, "Why did you become a journalist?" I went with one of my bosses because he was doing the interview, and I just latched on. So he asked me, "Why do you want to become a journalist?" And I just casually told him, "Oh well, because I think I can write well." And he got very furious, and he just replied saying, "Oh well, journalists are born, journalists can't be trained." Okay, so there are two different aspects to it. There are two different things. One is writing as a hobby, which is very different from if you really want to become a full-time professional journalist. But of course, the basic need is in whichever language you want to write. So you should have a sound basis, you should have a solid foundation for that language. Second is your inclination or interest to always go out and observe. Because now what is happening is with more and more of, and especially COVID has totally caught us unawares, and it has thrusted upon us now that we are forced to all work from home and just restrict ourselves to doing telephone interviews and writing our stories. So in a way, our field assignments have reduced. Other than that, other than those which are absolutely necessary. So it is very, very important to be out in the field for a journalist, because what you observe and what you absorb from what you have seen, the circumstance you are in, the situation you have been thrown into, that is what actually shapes your writing, along with the amount of reading that you have done. Because reading is very important if you want to be a good writer. The more you read, the better you are able to write. So for me, I think these three things are very, very most important: to read, to kind of go out, like meet people or go to places, go to spots, and try to understand, try to see the whole thing in a full, complete context to get a better perspective. Because if I'm trying to do armchair journalism, it restricts, it narrows down my sense of perception or even sense of perspective. So it is the moment you're out in the field, you're meeting people, you're talking to people, it really opens up a much more bigger field for you to understand and write about. And reading, of course. And of course, the basic thing is to, kind of keep yourself motivated, keep your interest, keep your senses alive. Because writing is not just about, you know holding the pen and writing is also about using all your senses, all your five senses to the hilt, to be able to produce a good copy. Writing is also about, kind of, which I do even after so many years of spending in journalism. Two things. One is, the moment you write something, you get it read or edited by somebody else. Okay. Because when I am writing something, I may not be able to, number one, see my own mistakes. And number two, also gauge how boring it can be to a reader. So when somebody else is reading it for you and somebody else is editing it for you, it is obviously for the better. So when my original copy and my edited copy, when I put them side by side, even today I compare. I read the two texts again to see the differences that have been, the changes that have been made, because that is what helps you to improve your next piece of writing.
All right. And so, what is the top three to-dos in Kodai?
For me, first and foremost, because I started with Kodaikanal during this roadless travel column only, and for me, coming from very kind of dry and less green landscape of North India. So Kodai immediately enticed me, with this I'm talking about 2000, between 2003 and 2008. The greenery and the landscape, it was so pure and so awesome that I just fell in love. So it was, the first thing was trekking, because the column was all about, disappearing into the forests and to be able to see wildlife. So I love that part, like walking around in Kodai, even if you don't know anything, even if you don't know anybody, the climate and the landscape, it was, I mean, that is one thing which I would like to do, trekking. Second is, of course, Kodai is full of interesting people. I mean, some lovely people have settled there with beautiful stories, beautiful work they do, and many of them I've featured in my columns for the newspaper. So, my second desire is to keep meeting such lovely people, keep discovering their life stories, and as long as I can and as far as I can, to be able to document. Because even from Kodai Canal, I have done so many personalities who I've been later told were never written about. People didn't know their good work they were doing. So that is one another thing, because I also like to meet a lot of new people. My profession also demands it, and I also have it a little bit in my nature to kind of go out, reach out, and mingle with people. So that is the second thing I would like to do: meet people. Because Kodai, I find the Kodai residents, they also do a lot of interesting and innovative things, whether it's in agriculture, whether it's in say social responsibility, whether it's in art, music. So to discover those things and bringing them out in public or to the world, that is one passion, or that is something which I would really like to follow. And third, of course, is food. I mean, of course, I have one favorite momo joint in Kodai, and like, because given the climate, you love to walk around and eat. So these are the three things: trekking, meeting people, and eating nice food that is available. I don't know. Do you know what is the local food in Kodai?
I guess so basically in the surrounding in my bounds, we are allowed to go out in some specific places. So there are many different restaurants on the
Okay.
main road, Seven Roads Junction, you may know. So
Mm.
there are many different restaurants there. So there's not, I'm not really, and I usually like having some North Indian. I like there's like a joint where I like enjoy having some North Indian food, like, and I also sometimes there's a burger joint also. So I don't really know local Kodi food, but I thought you might know
Kodai is
more
more
than me.
cosmopolitan, mainly because it's a tourist town.
Yeah,
So I don't think
yeah,
it may have some anything local in that sense, but it is kind of a melting pot of various cultures and regional
different
flavors.
things. Yeah,
That's what I find Kodi to be. And because of the climate, so whatever you get to find and eat hot there, it's really nice.
yeah, it is. All right. So thank you so much, Soma. Thank you so much for your time and good luck on your work.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.